Hi, Rapid City High School learners. Today we're going to do another short math lesson using the Desmos online calculator. This benefits both all of you who are taking the Smarter Balance test because you have access to this calculator, but it also benefits all of you who aren't taking that Smarter Balance test this year because the Desmos calculator is available to you all the time and it's an awesome math tool. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we open our computers and go to Desmos, we are just going to focus on the context of the problem. And I think that's really important to do, not only today, but when you're taking the test to really understand the problem before you just start to type things in the calculator. So with your pencil, or if you have a highlighter, let's read through this problem and see what's happening in it. So our first paragraph says Noah is depositing money in his account every week to save money. The graph shows the amount he has saved as a function of time since he opened his account. And when it says something is a function of, in this case, time, it means that the amount of money he saved depends on how long he's been saving. So that time is really what determines the amount of money, in this case, that Noah has in his account. So let's look at Noah's account. At 0 weeks, he started with $60. So that means before any time had passed, he already had $60. That's a really important point. In fact, that's called the y-intercept because it's where our line or data crosses the y-intercept. And we write that as the point 0, 60. Okay. Now, this graph is a little bit different because they don't have a continuous line drawn. And they also don't tell us what he had at 1 week or 3 weeks. They're only giving us the amount of information for odd number weeks, for even number weeks. But that doesn't mean we can't find that time. So what I'm going to, or find those weeks, how much he had on those odd numbered weeks. So what I'm going to do, and I'd like for you to do this with me, we're going to look at the number of weeks and the amount of money he had. This is on the x-axis and this is our y-axis. So our time is our x variable. And at 0 weeks, he had $60. They don't tell us what he had at 1 week, but at 2 weeks, if we go on this graph, we can see he had $70. They don't tell us for 3, but for 4, they do tell us that he had 4 weeks, he had $80. And this pattern continues. They don't tell us the odd numbered weeks, but we can see each even numbered week, he goes up by another $10. So at 6 weeks, he's at 90. And at 8 weeks, he's at 100. The reason I built this table is our brain really does think good in pictures. So you might be able to easily fill in those missing numbers. And that's a strategy my students used to call tabling it out, and it's actually really beneficial to put in those missing numbers and then have your brain fill that in. So we can see that this is a linear equation because each week the amount of savings increases by $5. So as our weeks increase by 1, our dollar amount increases by 5. That's also our slope. We could have found that on the graph as well. Find rise over run. And we can see that when this goes up $10, this goes over 2 weeks. Rise over run. Rise over run. Well, what is 10 divided by 2? It's 5. So in both the table and the graph, I can see that for 1 week, Noah's amount increases by $5. And that's very important that you always find the amount per one, our slope or unit rate. And this is the other important point we've talked about, that's our y-intercept. So for Noah's amount of savings, sorry about that, I'm moving the papers around, we can say that his money equals $60 plus $5 every week. We could have also used the variables x and y. If we think in the form of y equals mx plus b, y is our money. That's on the y-axis. So his money equals $5 for every week plus the 60 he started with. These two equations are equivalent. Okay, so that's how we're going to think about how Noah, the amount of money he has. Now let's look at what Molly has here. Molly opens an account on the same day as Noah, and she is also saving money every week. The amount of money in Molly's account can be represented by the function her money equals, and notice I'm not just reading the equation, I'm saying what those variables stand for. Her money equals $8 for every week plus 60, where W is the number of weeks since the account has opened. Zach also opened an account on the same day as Noah and Molly. He started his account with $30 and saves $20 per week. I'm not going to give you that equation. If you're wondering whose phone is going off in your classroom, it's not. It's happening in the room I'm in. So that's on the video, not in your class. All right. Just to kind of refocus here, this was the amount of money that Noah was saving. This was the amount of money Molly was saving. And Zach, they just give us a story problem. So now that we've looked at the problem, I'd like for you to go to your Desmos calculator. And students, there's really two Desmos calculators. There's the one that you have access to all the time. And then there's the Desmos calculator that you will have access to on the Smarter Balance test. They're very, very similar. But today I want to look at the one that you will have access to on the Smarter Balance test. So let's Google, instead of just Desmos, we're going to do Desmos. Desmos and then SBAC calculator. I'm telling you, even if you're not taking that test, if you can figure out this Desmos calculator, you guys, math will be, it can do so many amazing things for you. This Desmos calculator, I wish I would have had it when I was going to school because it has so many capabilities and you have it at your fingertips when you have your laptop. So this is what, as I was talking, just to kind of clarify, I did a Google search for Desmos, and then we did SBAC calculator. And the one we're using is the scientific and graphing. You guys get the nicest of the Desmos calculator. So when we go to it, if you remember last lesson, I showed you how to just type in problems here, like we could do 216, mom, we use this calculator and like do a division problem. And it gives us the answer. So we can use it just as a regular calculator, but today we get to see the cool part of it. So we know Noah's equation. We know that the money he gets is equal to $60 plus 5 every week. I'm going to zoom out, and you guys look at that. Not only did it graph that line for us, but it tells us every point on that line. We can drag this up. And use our cursor and see what other points are on that line. 2.2, 1.2, every single point, they will tell us as we trace that line. So there was Noah's. We can also put in the equation for Molly, and Molly, her money equaled 60 plus 8x or 8w, and it doesn't matter what we use for our variables. What I don't like is how this graph looks. Like you can manipulate it and kind of get the screen the way you want it to, but I want to show you this, and I think it'll be helpful for when you take the test. I want to change the window of my graph, and here's why. When we look at the graph for Noah, we can see the weeks go from 0 to 14, and they're going up by 1. And you might say, no, it's going by 2. Well, they just didn't want to scrunch in the numbers. Each block really does stand for 1 unit. And same thing here. It goes 10, 20, 30. So the steps or intervals are 10. So let's make our graph look like that. Okay, so once again, I hit this. I'm not going to do anything with that. Of course, later today in Advisor, if you want to play around with it, you can. But I'm going to go from 0, and on our graph, it was 14 weeks. I'm going to double that and just go to 30 weeks. And I'm going to do, I can do a step of 1, I can do a step of 2. The y-axis we know started at $0, and I'm just going to go up to like $400 or $300. You can choose whatever you want, and I'm going to do steps of 10 or 20. I'll do 10, but play around with it. Now, I don't have to hit enter or anything. As soon as I click back on my graph, look at that. And I can drag this and see the green line is Molly's. The blue line is for Noah. And I can see all the different amounts. So if I click on that blue line, then that's the one that I'm tracing on. So I've showed you how to put equations in there. I've showed you how to adjust the graph. Now I'm going to let you answer those questions at the bottom. There is one other person involved, and that's Zach. Don't forget, we only have the lines for Noah and Molly. So what I'm going to do is give you about the next 5 minutes. You probably won't even need that much to answer the questions on the bottom of that page using that Desmos calculator and all the things it can do. After you have finished the questions and you've submitted your answers onto Canvas, you can click on the next video that shows you what those answers were and how to get them. Hopefully you got them all correct, but if not, or if you want to see how I solved them, you can click on the video that shows the answers.